Let's begin with an uncomfortable truth. Kindness without sharpness makes you prey in a world built for predators. You were taught to be kind, to stay humble, to be gentle, and you were told, somehow, the world would reward you for it. That if you keep doing the right thing, someone out there will notice. That if you keep your heart pure, life will return the favor. But life isn't a fairy tale. And deep down you know that. You've just never had the courage to admit it out loud. How many times have you tried to be the good one, only to be overlooked? How many times have you stayed silent to keep the peace, only to be disrespected? How many times have you held on to your principles, while the cunning smiled as they passed you by? The world doesn't reward goodness. It rewards awareness. And Machiavelli was one of the few brave enough to say it plainly. He didn't write The Prince to teach you morality. He wrote it as a survival guide for those walking among wolves, trying to keep their soul without losing their life. Machiavelli made it clear. Morality without strategy is stupidity wearing a saint's robe. Kindness, when unguarded, becomes a leash, a collar others can use to lead you wherever they want. You're not wrong for being kind. You're wrong for believing that kindness alone earns respect. Because in this world, goodness without boundaries is just an open invitation for exploitation. Ask yourself this. The people you admire, the ones who've risen to power, did they get there through innocent intentions alone? Or did they rise because they understood human nature, because they knew when to be soft and when to be sharp, when to extend a hand and when to keep the knife behind their back? Machiavelli never told you to be cruel. He told you to stop being naive. He warned you not to walk into a game without knowing the rules. Because if you don't know how the game is played, you'll end up as a pawn in someone else's plan. Every time you stay quiet to keep the peace, every time you give without asking for anything in return, every time you tolerate what should never be tolerated, you are silently telling the world, I am weak. Use me. But you can stop right now. You don't have to let the world shape you. You can shape the world with intelligence. That's why you're here. Not to abandon your kindness, but to transform it into something no one dares take advantage of. Let's get something clear. The problem isn't that you're good. The problem is you don't know how to protect your goodness. You walk through life thinking everyone plays by the same rules, that people will treat you the way you treat them, that decency is contagious. But it's not. The world isn't full of like-minded souls. It's full of opportunists, predators in polished shoes, manipulators with kind eyes, people who know exactly what to do with someone like you, someone generous, trusting, and unguarded. You've become the perfect target, not because you're weak, but because you're transparent, predictable, safe. Machiavelli warned of this. He saw what most refuse to admit, that human nature, when cornered, isn't noble. It's calculated. That people, when given the chance, will choose advantage over ethics. And unless you understand this, you'll continue to fall victim to your own ideals. This isn't a call to become bitter. It's a call to become intelligent, to refine your kindness, to make it strategic. You don't need to betray your principles, but you do need to stop offering them on a silver platter. You must learn to read people, to sense their motives before they're spoken, to recognize the smile that hides a knife, and to understand, being loved is not the same as being respected. Machiavelli once wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." And you? You chose to be loved, to be accepted, to seem harmless. But be honest, what has that really earned you? Has it brought you admiration? Has it built your power? Has it made people think twice before crossing you? Or has it only taught you, over and over again, that people will take what you give and vanish the moment you need it returned? Kindness, when not backed by presence, strength, and boundaries, doesn't inspire loyalty. It inspires entitlement. People don't respect what's always available, what's easy to get, what never says no. And when they don't respect you, they don't listen to you, they don't protect you, they don't consider you. They use you, not because they're monsters, but because you never taught them otherwise. You've been wondering why your good heart keeps getting broken, why your silence leads to disrespect, why your giving never seems to come full circle. It's because you've mistaken kindness for a strategy. But it's not a strategy, not until you give it a spine, not until you combine it with awareness, discernment, and power. Machiavelli didn't say you have to stop being good. He said, you have to stop being blind. You didn't just want people to like you. You were starving for it. Not love in its purest form, but acceptance, approval. That quiet nod from the world that says, "You're good. You belong." You learn to survive by pleasing, by shrinking, by smoothing every edge of your personality just to avoid rejection. And over time, that survival strategy became your identity. You became the peacemaker, the agreeable one, the man who kept his thoughts polite, his voice low, his presence predictable. You told yourself that made you kind, but in truth, it made you invisible. Because here's the brutal truth Machiavelli would whisper in your ear. The world is not ruled by the lovable. It is ruled by the unreadable. When you crave to be liked, you become soft in places that require steel. You compromise when you should hold your ground. You give second chances when silence would have spoken louder. And slowly, the world stops seeing you as a man to remember. It sees you as a man to use. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one must choose." And it wasn't a call to cruelty. It was a recognition of human nature. People follow those they can't fully predict, not those who give away their essence for free. When you lead with your need to be liked, you telegraph weakness. You reveal the buttons. You show them how far they can push. And worst of all, you let them believe your kindness is endless, that they can disrespect you without consequence. Because your approval-seeking heart will always come back for more. But approval is a prison. One built with compliments and locked with self-doubt. And the more you chase it, the further you drift from the man you were meant to become. Because here's what no one tells you. Being liked is cheap. It costs nothing. But being respected? That's earned. That requires boundaries. That requires a backbone. That requires the willingness to walk away from any room that demands your silence as payment for love. So look at your life. Look at the places where you've given too much, where you've stayed too long, where you've tolerated too quietly. And ask yourself, was it kindness or was it fear? Because if you don't face that truth now, you'll keep reliving the same lesson. Keep smiling through disrespect. Keep apologizing for your needs. Keep hoping that one day, someone will see your worth without you having to roar. But they won't. Not until you become the kind of man who doesn't need to be liked. Not until you become the kind of man who can be kind and still be feared. From a young age, you were told the same lie. That goodness would eventually be recognized. That if you stayed loyal, patient, honest, life would hand you the crown. But what they didn't tell you is that the world isn't watching. And if it is, it's not applauding your purity. It's calculating your usefulness. Because the world, as Machiavelli saw it, doesn't move according to virtue. It moves according to leverage. Power isn't about what you intend. It's about what you can control. So let me ask you, where has your decency taken you? How many times have you done the right thing and watched someone more cunning, more ruthless, more aware of the game rise above you? It hurts because part of you still wants to believe the myth that good guys finish first, that the truth always wins. But if you've lived long enough, you know that's not how the world works. Because the world doesn't reward men who are morally good. It rewards men who are strategically good, men who can weaponize their presence, who know when to speak and when to vanish, who understand that appearances are often more valuable than authenticity. Machiavelli warned, it is not necessary to have all the virtues, but it is necessary to appear to have them. Because appearance shapes perception, and perception shapes power. You may be the wisest man in the room, but if you can't control how others perceive you, if you seem soft when you're supposed to stand firm, if you appear desperate when you should be detached, you lose your influence. The manipulator thrives because he looks confident. The fool wins because he sounds certain. And the virtuous man, he waits silently, hoping someone will notice his worth. But the world rarely notices what doesn't demand its attention. And that is why Machiavelli didn't ask you to stop being good. He asked you to stop being forgettable. Machiavelli didn't just teach survival. He taught performance, the art of cultivating an image that commands respect before you even speak, the discipline to act with intent, not impulse, and above all, the courage to abandon the comforting delusion that people are fair. They're not. People are emotional, reactive, drawn to charisma, mystery, dominance, not purity. So if you want to stop being overlooked, you must stop hoping your goodness will be enough. You must become the kind of man whose silence has gravity, whose words are rare but sharp, whose presence makes others straighten their posture. Because in the end, it's not morality that rules the world. It's mastery. Let me ask you something. Have you ever watched someone far less competent get ahead of you? Not because they were smarter, not because they worked harder, but because they mastered the art of presence. This is where most people lose the game before it even starts. They think truth is enough, that being good at what you do will eventually speak for itself. But Machiavelli knew better. He said, "It is not necessary to have all the virtues, but to appear to have them. That's not deception. That's strategy. Because in the eyes of the world, you are not what you are. You are what you appear to be. People don't see your inner character. They see your posture. They hear your tone. They read your confidence or your hesitation. And they make snap judgments based on surface impressions. So if you appear uncertain, they'll treat you as uncertain. If you appear passive, they'll overlook you. If you appear soft, they'll challenge you. And it won't matter how good your heart is, or how capable you are behind closed doors. Because power isn't just what's inside. It's how well you translate it into the room. The truth is, people follow what they perceive as authority, even if it's a facade. That's why the loudest, most confident fool often commands more attention than the silent, intelligent man. Because he understands the one thing most good men never learn. You must master the narrative of yourself. You must learn to curate your presence, like a king curates his image, not to please others, but to shape the terms of how others engage with you. Because if you don't define your value, they will. And when they do, they will almost always undervalue you. You don't need to pretend, but you do need to present. Power is not just held, it's projected. Respect is not just earned, it's signaled. So stop hoping people will see your worth eventually. Start showing it, intentionally. Machiavelli wasn't encouraging arrogance. He was telling you the truth that polite society tries to hide. Appearances rule perception, and perception shapes reality. It's not about becoming fake. It's about becoming undeniable. Power isn't always loud. In fact, the strongest people in the room often say the least. Because what you say can be used against you. But what you withhold, that creates mystery, and mystery creates control. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote, "A prince must know how to conceal his intentions, not because deception is noble, but because transparency in the wrong hands is suicide." Most people think speaking up is power. That saying what's on your mind earns you respect. But often, it earns you exposure. Because once people can predict your thoughts, your values, your next move, they gain leverage over you. And when you're predictable, you're no longer dangerous. You're manageable. Strategic silence isn't about pretending. It's about preserving your edge. It's about knowing what to reveal and what to keep buried. Think about it. How many times have you over-explained yourself, trying to be understood, only to feel misunderstood? Or worse, dismissed? How many times have you trusted too quickly, revealed too much, and watched that information come back to bite you? That's not honesty. That's poor self-defense. In a world full of watchers, those who control the flow of information control the board. Because the less people know about you, the more they're forced to respect the space around you, to wonder. And hesitation? Hesitation is power. You don't owe the world your thoughts. You don't owe explanations to people who haven't earned your truth. Every word you speak should carry weight. Every sentence, deliberate, measured, intentional. Because when you speak less, people lean in. They listen. They replay your words in their minds, trying to find meaning between the lines. That is influence. The man who talks endlessly is cheap, forgettable, replaceable. But the man who knows how to pause, who lets silence linger, that man, he owns the room. Do the heavy lifting. That man carries presence. Strategic silence is not weakness. It is the armor of those who refuse to be read too easily. So stop filling the air with noise. Stop giving people the full map of who you are. Leave gaps. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Because when no one knows exactly what you think, no one can control you. And that is the kind of power no one dares challenge. If people can predict you, they can control you. It's that simple. Machiavelli didn't just study power. He studied fear. And he discovered something history proves again and again. Predictable men are expendable. But the unpredictable are dangerous. You see, when people know how you'll react, they can plan around you. They can manipulate your emotions. They can trap you with your own patterns. You become a puppet, not because they're smarter, but because you've made yourself easy to read. Think of how many times you've responded the same way. To pressure, to rejection, to disrespect, to conflict. And think of how easily others exploited that consistency, because they could count on you to be safe, to be soft, to be scared of surprise. But here's the shift. The moment you become unpredictable, the power dynamic flips. They don't know whether you'll stay or walk away, whether you'll forgive or disappear, whether you'll respond with calm or with cold indifference. And that uncertainty, that psychological tension, creates distance, creates respect, creates space for you to operate on your own terms. Because people don't fear the cruel. They fear the unreadable, the one who can't be boxed in, the one who smiles without revealing intent, the one who doesn't react the way they expect. They fear the unreadable, the one who can't be boxed in, the one who smiles without revealing intent, the one who doesn't react the way they expect, the one who can go silent and leave them guessing. Unpredictability isn't chaos. It's calculated mystery. It's keeping just enough of yourself hidden that no one ever truly knows where you stand. Because when they can't predict you, they can't prepare for you. And when they can't prepare for you, they hesitate. And he who makes others hesitate commands the game. So break your patterns. Refuse to be defined by your past behavior. Say no when they expect yes. Disappear when they expect presence. Speak only when silence would be safer. Because your unpredictability is not confusion. It is control. It is a shield. And sometimes, it's the only thing standing between you and being devoured. Machiavelli didn't tell you to become chaotic. He told you to become untouchable. And untouchable begins when you stop being predictable. Let me give you one of the most misunderstood truths about power. Respect is not built by showing up all the time. Respect is built when your absence creates impact. We've been conditioned to believe that being available, being responsive, being ever-present is a sign of value. But Machiavelli warned otherwise. He understood that too much familiarity breeds contempt, and that scarcity increases worth. If you are always around, always answering, always giving, always accessible, then your presence becomes ordinary, expected, taken for granted. And what's expected is never appreciated. You see it in relationships. You see it at work. You see it in every human dynamic. The one who chases, the one who over-delivers, the one who never steps back, is the one most often forgotten. Not because they weren't valuable, but because they never made their value felt through distance. Machiavelli taught that a leader must never become too familiar. Not because they should act superior, but still crave applause from the same crowd they left behind. That weakness, that hunger for acknowledgement, it's what drags them back. You owe nothing to the past. There's a lie that society whispers. Don't forget where you came from. Why? You paid the price. You carried the weight. You endured the pain. You don't owe your old self a monument. You don't owe your neighborhood a visit. You don't owe your old friends an explanation for your success. You survived. That was the debt, and you've already paid it. Now let it rot. Because if someone wasn't there during the rebuilding, they have no right to sit in the finished empire. The man who does the heavy lifting carries more than weight. He carries presence. Strategic silence isn't weakness. It's the armor of those who refuse to be easily read. So stop filling the air with noise. Stop handing people a full map of who you are. Leave blanks. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Because when no one knows exactly what you think, no one can control you. And that kind of power, no one dares to challenge it. If they can predict you, they can control you. It's that simple. Machiavelli didn't just study power, he studied fear. And what he discovered is something history has proven again and again. Predictable men are expendable, but the unpredictable, they're dangerous. When people know how you'll react, they can plan around you. They can manipulate your emotions, trap you using your own patterns. You become a puppet pulled by invisible strings, not because they're smarter, but because you made yourself easy to read. Think about it. How many times have you reacted the same way to pressure, to rejection, to disrespect, to conflict? And how many times have people taken advantage of that consistency, counting on you to be safe, soft, scared of surprise? But here's the shift. The moment you become unpredictable, the power dynamic flips. They don't know if you'll stay or walk away, forgive or disappear, respond with calm or cold indifference. And that uncertainty, that psychological tension, it creates distance. It creates respect. It gives you the space to operate on your own terms. Because people don't fear cruelty. They fear what they can't read. The one who can't be boxed in. The one who smiles without revealing intent. The one who doesn't react the way they expect. The one who can go quiet and leave them guessing. Unpredictability isn't chaos. It's calculated mystery. It's hiding just enough of yourself that no one ever truly knows where you stand. Because when they can't predict you, they can't prepare for you. And when they can't prepare for you, they hesitate. And he who makes others hesitate commands the game. So break your patterns. Refuse to be defined by your past behavior. Say no when they expect yes. Disappear when they expect you to show up. Speak only when silence would be safer. Because your unpredictability isn't confusion, it's control. It's your shield. And sometimes, it's the only thing standing between you and being devoured. Machiavelli never told you to become chaotic. He told you to become untouchable. And untouchable begins the moment you stop being predictable. Let me give you one of the most misunderstood truths about power. Respect isn't built by showing up all the time. Respect is built when your absence creates impact. We've been conditioned to believe that being available, responsive, ever-present is a sign of value. But Machiavelli warned otherwise. He knew too much familiarity breeds contempt, and that scarcity breeds worth. If you're always around, always replying, always giving, always accessible, your presence becomes ordinary. Expected. And what's expected is never appreciated. You see it in relationships, in the workplace, in every human dynamic. The one who chases, the one who overdelivers, the one who never pulls back, is the one most often forgotten. Not because they lacked value, but because they never let that value be felt through distance. Machiavelli taught that a leader must never become too familiar, not out of arrogance, but because the more they see you, the more they believe they've figured you out. And once they believe that, they stop respecting your boundaries. But when you pull back,